The fleet awakens. The observation deck of the CNS Prometheus offered an unparalleled view of humanity's greatest achievement. Commander Ilara Shah stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her reflection ghosting against the transparent aluminum viewport as she gazed outward at the armada that stretched beyond visual range. 900,000 warships, each a testament to humanity's resolve, moved in perfect formation as they prepared to leave the Sol system. The fleet had been built in absolute secrecy over 150 years, hidden among asteroid belts, concealed in gas-giant atmospheres, constructed in underground facilities across a dozen colony worlds, all while the galactic community believed humans were barely surviving after the Great Burning. Final authorization received, Commander, announced Lieutenant Kai Martinez from the communication station. Operation Daybreak is officially underway. Ilara nodded, her expression betraying none of the emotions churning within her. Inform all vessels. We launch in 20 minutes. The command deck fell silent as officers carried out their duties with practiced precision. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. Some had never even set foot on Earth. Born and raised on hidden military stations, their entire existence devoted to humanity's response to the greatest tragedy in its history. 150 years ago, the Galactic Concordat had deemed humanity too unpredictable, too aggressive, and too innovative to be allowed unrestricted expansion. Without warning or declaration, Concordat warships had appeared in Earth's orbit, using gravitational weapons to create massive tsunamis and atmospheric incinerators to burn major cities to ash. 3 billion humans died in what became known as the Great Burning. The survivors were expected to limp along as a broken species, perhaps surviving but never again threatening the established order of the galaxy. That had been the Concordat's first and final mistake. They had left humans alive. Multiple unidentified vessels detected at the edge of the system, reported Sensor Officer Leila Okafor. At least 40 different configurations. They're maintaining distance. The strategic director, Marcus Chen, stepped onto the bridge, his simple gray uniform bearing no insignia, despite his authority exceeding even Ilara's. "Let them watch," he said. "Let them see what they've created." Ilara nodded in agreement. Tactical display. The main view screen shifted to show the fleet's formation, a three-dimensional chessboard of destructive potential. Dreadnoughts formed the spine of the armada, surrounded by cruiser squadrons, destroyer packs, and swarms of frigates. Each vessel carried weapons that could level cities, and together they represented the single largest military force ever assembled in known galactic history. "Would you like to address the fleet before departure, Director?" Ilara asked. Marcus stepped forward to the communication station. Lieutenant Martinez quickly established a channel that would broadcast to all 900,000 ships simultaneously. The director took a moment to compose himself before beginning. "Men and women of Earth's fleet, this is Strategic Director Marcus Chen. Today, we emerge from the shadows. For too long, we have hidden our strength, building in secret while the galaxy believed us broken. They burned our cities. They slaughtered our families. They expected us to fade away, to accept our place as a footnote in galactic history. Throughout the fleet, in cramped crew quarters and spacious command decks alike, humans listened in solemn silence. Today, we show them how wrong they were. Today, 900,000 ships crewed by the children of Earth will launch into the stars. We do not seek vengeance. We do not seek conquest. We seek only what was denied to us. Our rightful place among the stars, our security against those who would harm us, and justice for those we lost." Marcus paused, his eyes hardening. "Remember your training. Remember your duty. And most importantly, remember Earth." The transmission ended. Outside the Prometheus, engines across the vast fleet began to glow with blue-white energy. The vanguard of destroyers and scout vessels initiated movement, their formations precise and coordinated with a level of military discipline that would send chills down the spines of those watching. "All systems green," reported the operations officer. fleet movement proceeding exactly as scheduled. On a small moon orbiting Saturn, a four-armed Xelian observer watched through advanced optics as the human fleet began its departure. Its appendages trembled as it sent an urgent message back to its homeworld. The rumors were true. Humans have built, I cannot properly describe it, an armada unlike anything recorded in the archives. They're leaving their system. All vessels are advised to clear any potential path. Do not, under any circumstances, engage. Similar messages raced across the galaxy, from Scout to Homeworld, from Homeworld to Allies, from Allies to the Galactic Concordat itself. Species that had dismissed humans as primitives now scrambled their own fleets, not to fight, but to retreat. The once mighty Vander and Imperium, primary architects of the attack on Earth, sent a simple message to all its worlds: evacuate border colonies immediately. As the human fleet passed the orbit of Neptune, Ilara looked at a small screen showing Earth, now just a pale blue dot in the distance. We're receiving a final message from Earth Command, Martinez said quietly. It simply says, remember, but be better. Ilara nodded slowly. Acknowledge receipt. The bridge fell silent as the Prometheus and its escorts accelerated toward the heliopause. Behind them, the rest of the fleet followed in perfect formation, a display of power that no species could ignore. 900,000 warships built in secret by a species that should have been broken, now launched into the galaxy. And the galaxy, for the first time in recorded history, was silent with fear. 3 weeks after leaving Earth's solar system, the human fleet divided into 3 massive battle groups. Each contained 300,000 warships, a force that alone would have outmatched any single species in known space. The separation occurred with mathematical precision, ships breaking formation only to smoothly transition into new ones. Admiral Helena Kreos commanded Battle Group Aegis, tasked with approaching the core worlds of the Solaran Alliance, the loose confederation of species that had once supported the Concordat's attack on Earth. Her flagship, the CNS Themis, led from the center of the formation as they entered the Orion Spur. Any response to our approach? Helena asked, her weathered face showing no emotion despite the tension filling the bridge. Communications Officer Patel shook his head. Nothing direct, Admiral. We're picking up increased chatter between their worlds, but they're avoiding official contact. They're terrified, said Intelligence Officer Dr. Maya Wong, studying data on her tablet. Reports indicate they've evacuated 3 border systems already. They're pulling back their civilians. Helena nodded slowly. She was one of the few senior officers who actually remembered Earth before the Great Burning. She had been just 8 years old when the alien ships appeared in the sky and rained fire down on her hometown of New Lagos. That memory had fueled her through military academy and her rise through the ranks. They should be afraid, she said quietly. But fear without understanding won't serve our purpose. Across the bridge, Lieutenant Caro monitored the scanners. Admiral, we've got movement. A small group of ships has broken from the Proxima station ahead. 5 vessels approaching slowly. Weapon status? Helena asked immediately. Passive, Admiral. Their weapon systems are powered down. Looks like a diplomatic vessel with escorts. Helena exchanged glances with Dr. Wong. This was unexpected. The Solaran Alliance had been radio silent since the human fleet's departure from Sol. They're hailing us, Admiral, Paddle reported, surprise evident in his voice. On screen, the main display flickered to life, showing an alien with iridescent scales and large, multifaceted eyes. A Sarythi, one of the more moderate species in the Alliance. This is Emissary Talis of the Solaran Alliance, the alien said, its translator converting its melodic language to English. I request permission to come aboard your vessel for direct talks. Helena's expression didn't change. Emissary, this is Admiral Kreos of Earth Fleet's Battle Group Aegis. Why should we grant your request when your alliance participated in the attack on our homeworld? The alien's scales shifted colors slightly, a gesture of shame in their culture. The Alliance made a grievous error 150 years ago. We followed the Concordats' lead without questioning their judgment. Many of us have regretted that decision for generations. Regret doesn't rebuild cities or bring back the dead, Helena replied coldly. No, Talus agreed. It does not. But perhaps dialogue can prevent more cities from falling and more people, yours and ours, from dying. In the engineering section of the Themis, Chief Engineer Rashid Bakri was reviewing anomalous energy signatures detected from Alliance territory when his assistant brought him news about the diplomatic vessel. They actually want to talk? Rashid asked, looking up from his holographic display. After all this time? That's what I heard, replied his assistant. And there's something else. They're saying the Alliance has known about our fleet for months. Rashid frowned deeply. That's impossible. We maintained complete communications blackout during construction. How could they know? No idea. But they didn't do anything about it, just watched and waited. This troubled Rashid deeply. As one of the engineers who had helped design the stealth systems for the human fleet, he took pride in their invisibility. If the aliens had known all along. I need to check something, he said, hurrying to his workstation. He pulled up schematics of the alien surveillance network that Earth intelligence had mapped over the years. If there was a hole in their security, he needed to find it. 2 hours later, Emissary Talus stood in the Themis' conference room, surrounded by human officers. The contrast was striking. The tall, regal alien with its shifting scales facing humans in crisp military uniforms, their faces showing little emotion. We detected your shipbuilding activities approximately 18 months ago, Talus explained, projecting a star chart showing human construction sites. Our long-range probes identified unusual resource movements and energy signatures. And you did nothing? Helena asked, skepticism clear in her voice. What could we do? Talus's multifaceted eyes reflected the room's light in kaleidoscopic patterns. By the time we realized the scale of what humanity was building, it was already too late. Any aggressive action would have only triggered an immediate response from your forces. Dr. Wong stepped forward. You could have informed the Galactic Concordat. They certainly would have attempted another attack. Talus's scales rippled in waves of dark blue, a sign of discomfort. Many in the Alliance opposed the first attack on Earth. We were overruled. The Concordat insisted humans were too unpredictable, too aggressive to be allowed to develop further. And now? Helena asked. Now we see what happens when you corner a species and leave them no choice but to become exactly what you feared, Talus replied. The alien gestured to the viewport where thousands of human warships were visible. The Alliance wishes to negotiate a separate peace with humanity, independent of the Concordat's position. Back in engineering, Rashid had made a disturbing discovery. Pulling up communication records from alien satellites near one of their secret shipyards, he found evidence of regular surveillance. The aliens had indeed been watching them, but the strange thing was what they did with that information. Nothing. No alerts, no military buildups, just observation. Rashid immediately contacted the bridge. Admiral, I found something you need to see. While Rashid shared his findings with Admiral Krios, battle groups Phalanx and Bastion were making their own first contacts across the galaxy. Battle Group Phalanx, commanded by Admiral Takeshi Yamamoto, approached Vandaran Imperium territory, the species that had led the attack on Earth. Unlike Battle Group Aegis's experience, they encountered no diplomatic vessels. The Vandarans were running. They've abandoned another colony. Admiral reported his second-in-command. That's the fourth one. They're creating a buffer zone between us and their core worlds. Takeshi studied the tactical display showing Vandaran ships in full retreat. They think we're here for revenge. Aren't we? Asked his officer quietly. Takeshi gave him a measured look. We're here for justice and security. Revenge would make us no better than them. Meanwhile, Battle Group Bastion held position at Nexus Station, a major trading hub where 3 galactic arms intersected. The station, normally bustling with ships from dozens of species, now floated in near emptiness, most traders having flooded news of the human approach. Commander Diana Rodriguez watched from her flagship as a handful of brave or desperate merchants continued their business. "Commander," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the station itself." The message was simple. The Galactic Concordat requests humanity's presence at an emergency session. For the first time in Concordat history, Earth is invited to send representatives. Back on the Themis, emissary Talus had finished presenting the Alliance's proposal for peace when Rashid's findings were brought to Helena's attention. "Your people knew about our fleet, watched us build it, and chose not to act," Helena said, studying the evidence. "Why?" Talus's scales shifted to a deep violet. A color humans had learned indicated solemn truthfulness. "Because many of us believed we deserved whatever was coming. The attack on Earth was unconscionable. Some species in the Alliance viewed it as necessary, but others saw it as an atrocity. So you just waited for us to come for you." "We waited to see what humans would do with such power," Talus replied. "The Concordat believed your kind would use it for destruction and conquest, as they would have done. We hoped otherwise." Helena leaned forward. "And now that we're here, now that you see 900,000 warships at your doorstep, what do you believe now?" Talus's multifaceted eyes fixed on Helena's. "I believe that if destruction was your goal, we would already be dead. The fact that you're willing to talk gives many of us hope that perhaps the Concordat was wrong about humanity all along." As this conversation unfolded, across all three battle groups, humans maintained their disciplined formations, their weapons ready but not active, their posture defensive rather than aggressive. The galaxy watched in tense silence, waiting to see what humanity would do with its overwhelming force. And in that silence was fear, but also, for the first time, a glimmer of respect. A new equilibrium. The Galactic Concordat chamber had never seen a human before. Located on a massive space station at the galactic core, the ancient hall had hosted representatives from thousands of species over its 15 millennia of existence. Today, for the first time, 3 humans stood before the curved table where the 7 elder species sat in judgment over galactic affairs. Strategic Director Marcus Chen led the small human delegation, flanked by Ambassador Sophia Okonkwo and Fleet Admiral James Reeves. They stood tall, their simple gray uniforms a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and ornamental armor worn by the other species present. "The Concordat recognizes the representatives of Earth," announced the Concordat leader, a Nexari with translucent skin that barely concealed the complex network of pulsing neural pathways beneath. The hesitation before saying Earth was slight but noticeable. Marcus stepped forward. "The people of Earth acknowledge the Concordat's recognition," he replied, following the ancient protocol perfectly, much to the surprise of the assembled delegates. Humanity had been studying the Concordat for decades, learning everything they could about the body that had ordered their near extinction. "We are gathered to address the unprecedented military mobilization of the human species," the Nexari continued. 900,000 warships now travel through Concordat space without authorization, causing widespread concern among peaceful civilizations. Marcus's face remained impassive. "Interesting. When your ships entered Earth's space 150 years ago to burn our cities, I don't recall you seeking authorization." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Such direct speech was rarely heard in Concordat proceedings. That action was a preventative measure, stated a Vandaran representative, its armored exoskeleton clicking as it spoke. The Concordat determined that human expansion posed an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. "Based on what evidence?" Marcus demanded. "Your history," the Vandaran replied. "No other species has fought so many wars against itself. No other species advanced from primitive flight to space travel in less than a century." The trajectory was clear. Ambassador Okonkwo stepped forward. "So you punished us not for actions we had taken, but for actions you feared we might take." Meanwhile, several light years away, Lieutenant Commander Area Novak moved silently through the maintenance corridors of Concordat Archives, Station K7. While the official human delegation attended the Concordat meeting, Area had a different mission altogether. Dressed in the environmental suit of a station maintenance worker, she bypassed security systems with equipment specifically designed for this purpose. Earth intelligence had spent decades collecting data on Concordat security protocols, and now that knowledge was being put to use. Area reached a data access point and connected a small device to its interface. "I'm in," she whispered into her subdermal communicator, beginning download. Back at the Concordat chamber, the debate continued with increasing tension. "The fact remains," said the Vanderan representative, "that humanity has built the largest military force seen in the galaxy's modern era. How are we to interpret this as anything but a threat?" Admiral Reeves spoke for the first time. "The same way we were expected to interpret your unprovoked attack, as a matter of security." The Nexere Concordat leader raised a slender hand for silence. "Perhaps we can address specific concerns. Will humanity agree to limitations on its fleet movements? Perhaps a gradual disarmament process?" "No," Marcus said simply. The chamber fell silent. "No negotiations about the size or movement of our fleet," he continued. "Those are non-starters. We are here to establish new terms for humanity's place in the galaxy, not to surrender our only guarantee of safety." "Then what do you propose?" asked the Nexere. "First, formal acknowledgement that the attack on Earth was unjustified. Second, reparations for the billions of lives lost. Third, recognition of all human-controlled space and colonies as sovereign territory, with guarantees against future aggression." The Concordat members looked at each other in disbelief. These were not the terms of a species seeking compromise. These were demands backed by overwhelming force. On Archives Station K7, Area had downloaded terabytes of classified Concordat data when an alarm suddenly blared. "Security alert. Unauthorized access in Section 12 Delta," announced the station's eye. Area quickly disconnected her device and placed it in a hidden compartment of her suit. She had what she came for. Now she just needed to escape. Two security officers rounded the corner ahead. Tall, tentacled Juraxians known for their loyalty to the Concordat. Area ducked into a maintenance shaft, using the station schematics memorized during her mission prep. She wasn't just an infiltration specialist. She was one of the few humans who had extensively studied Juraxian physiology. She knew they could detect electrical impulses, but had poor perception in the infrared spectrum. Activating a small device on her belt, Area created an electrical signature that moved in the opposite direction, while her suit switched to a mode that masked her heat signature. The Juraxians followed the decoy, allowing her to make her way toward the extraction point. As the Concordat meeting continued, the human battle groups maintained their positions across the galaxy. Battle Group Aegis remained near the Solaran Alliance worlds. Battle Group Phalanx kept the Vanderan Imperium contained within their own space, and Battle Group Bastion held the strategically crucial Nexus position. Admiral Helena Kreos received an encoded transmission from the Themis' communications officer. "Admiral, we've just received intelligence from Operation Oracle. Lieutenant Commander Novik's mission was successful." Helena reviewed the summary of findings on a secure tablet, her expression growing grimmer with each swipe of her finger. "Send this to Director Chen immediately. Priority channel." In the Concordat chamber, Marcus's secure communicator vibrated silently against his wrist. He glanced down at it briefly, then returned his attention to the Concordat with a new coldness in his eyes. "Before we continue these discussions," he said, interrupting a Vanderan representative mid-sentence, "I'd like to ask about project containment." The chamber went completely still. Even the environmental systems seemed to quiet. "I don't know what you're referring to," the Nexere Concordat leader said after a moment too long. Marcus smiled without warmth. "Strange. According to the files we've just acquired from your secure database, Project Containment was the code name for a plan developed not 150 years ago, but nearly 300 years ago, long before we had achieved significant space travel. He touched his tablet, and holographic images appeared above the center of the chamber. Concordat documents marked with the highest security classifications. These files show that the Concordat identified Earth as a potential disruption source during our early industrial age. You've been watching us for centuries, planning how to keep us contained. Ambassador Okonkwo stepped forward, continuing the presentation. The Great Burning wasn't a response to any immediate threat. It was simply the implementation of a long-standing plan to ensure that humans never joined the galactic community as equals. The Concordat chamber erupted in shouted denials and demands to know how humans had accessed classified information. Several species representatives hurriedly left the chamber, presumably to check what other secrets might have been compromised. In the chaos, Admiral Reeves leaned close to Marcus. Novik's data also shows something else. Not all species supported Project Containment. There was significant opposition, especially from the older races. Marcus nodded slightly. This aligned with what they had suspected. The Concordat was not as unified as it appeared. When the Nexari finally restored order, the Concordat leader's skin had darkened with what humans had learned was their version of anger or distress. "These accusations are serious," the Nexari said, "and the manner in which you obtained this information is a clear violation of Concordat security. Were we expected to ask politely why you tried to exterminate us?" Admiral Reeves asked, his military bearing never faltering. A new voice spoke up, one of the ancient archivist species, rarely active in Concordat politics anymore. "Perhaps," the wizened creature said, "it is time for truth." The chamber fell silent again as the ancient being continued. The younger races feared what humans might become. Some of us older species remembered when we were feared for similar reasons. The Concordat was wrong to attack Earth. I said so at the time, as did others, but we were overruled. Now we face the very outcome we sought to prevent: a militarized human species with both the power and the motivation to reshape the galaxy. Marcus looked directly at the archivist. "Yet here we stand, talking instead of firing weapons. Perhaps you misjudged not just our potential for violence, but our capacity for peace as well." Around the galaxy, as news of the confrontation at the Concordat spread, dozens of species that had remained neutral began reaching out to human commanders. Some offered support, others requested protection, and a few even suggested alliances. The galaxy was realigning itself around the new reality. Humanity was not just a survivor of attempted genocide. It was now a power that could no longer be ignored. And in the face of humanity's restraint, the galaxy's fear began, ever so slightly, to transform into something else: respect. Captain Eliza Reyes stood on the bridge of the CNS Defiant, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 50 alien warships approached her position, weapons hot and shields raised. They belonged to the Krell Dominion, the most militaristic faction of the Concordat, and the only one that had thus far refused to engage in dialogue. "They're targeting us, Captain," reported Lieutenant Daniels from Tactical. "Incoming transmission." On screen, Eliza ordered calmly. A Krell commander appeared, its chitinous faceplates clicking in agitation. "Human vessel, this is Commander Vexar of the Krell Dominion. Your presence in this sector violates sovereign Dominion space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Eliza didn't flinch. "Commander, this is Captain Rice of the Earth Fleet. We are in neutral space as defined by Concordat conventions. Our presence here is lawful." "You have 10 of your minutes to withdraw," the Krell commander replied, cutting the transmission. "Alert Battle Group Command," Eliza ordered, "and bring all defensive systems to full readiness. Weapons on standby only." The Defiant was not alone. It was part of a patrol squadron of 12 human vessels. Against 50 Krell warships, they were severely outnumbered. "Message from Admiral Yamamoto," Communications Officer Rivera announced. "Battle Group Phalanx is responding, but they're 40 minutes out at best speed." Eliza nodded, her mind racing through tactical options. This was the moment everyone had been anticipating, the first potential direct confrontation since the fleet's departure from Earth. 9 minutes until their deadline, Daniels reported. Open a channel to the Krell flagship, Eliza ordered. When the alien commander appeared again, she spoke with deliberate calm. Commander Vexar, I remind you that an attack on Earth fleet vessels will be considered an act of war. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves. You humans understand only strength, the Krell replied. The Concordat's weakness in the face of your threats is disgraceful. The Dominion will not be intimidated. The channel closed again. 7 minutes, Daniels reported. Eliza activated the squadron command channel. All vessels, defensive formation Delta. Shields at maximum, point defense systems active. Do not, I repeat, do not fire unless fired upon. She turned to her XO. Commander Park, prepare the shock point protocol. Park's eyes widened slightly. Captain, that's still experimental. We've never tested it in combat conditions. We're about to, Eliza replied grimly. The shock point protocol was one of humanity's most closely guarded technological developments, a defensive system designed to create localized disruptions in spacetime, capable of deflecting or absorbing weapons fire without causing collateral damage. Unlike the gravitational weapons used by the aliens during the Great Burning, this technology was designed specifically to minimize casualties while neutralizing threats. 3 minutes. The human squadron moved into a tight defensive formation, each ship positioned to provide overlapping shield coverage. 1 minute. Eliza took a deep breath. All vessels, activate shock point systems. Across all 12 human ships, previously concealed emitters extended from their hulls, a soft blue glow emanating from each one. Krell vessels are powering weapons, Daniels reported. They're firing. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the Krell ships, converging on the human squadron. But instead of impacting shields, the beams seemed to vanish into rippling distortions that appeared briefly in space before dissipating. Shock point functioning at 93% efficiency, reported Park. Minor shield drain on vessels 7 and 9. But holding. Eliza opened the channel again. Krell Commander, as you can see, your weapons are ineffective. We have no desire to destroy your ships or harm your crews. Stand down. The Krell vessels fired again, with the same result. Then they began launching missiles. Intercept those with point defense, Eliza ordered. The human ship's defensive systems activated, destroying the incoming ordnance well before it reached their formation. For 10 minutes, the Krell continued their assault with increasing desperation, trying different weapon configurations and attack patterns. Nothing penetrated the human defenses. Battle Group Phalanx will arrive in 18 minutes, Rivera reported. Eliza nodded. Maintain defensive posture. Do not return fire. Finally, the Krell attacks ceased. The alien vessels maintained their position, but their weapons powered down. They're hailing us, Rivera said. The Krell commander appeared on screen. His demeanor subtly changed. Your defensive capabilities are impressive, Vexar admitted reluctantly. The Dominion acknowledges the futility of further engagement at this time. We appreciate your restraint, Commander, Eliza replied diplomatically. Earth has no quarrel with the Krell people. We seek only mutual security and respect. The Krell commander studied her for a long moment. Perhaps the Dominion has miscalculated regarding humans. We will withdraw and reconsider our position. One by one, the Krell warships turned and departed, leaving the human squadron untouched. News of the encounter spread rapidly throughout the galaxy. Humanity had faced its first direct challenge and had prevailed without firing a single shot. The demonstration of defensive technology far beyond what the Concordat had believed possible sent shockwaves through galactic diplomatic circles. 2 weeks later, representatives from 27 species gathered aboard the Nexus station to sign the Treaty of Sol, a comprehensive agreement recognizing human sovereignty, establishing reparations for the Great Burning, and creating new frameworks for interspecies cooperation. Strategic Director Marcus Chen stood at the signing table, flanked by representatives from Earth's government and military. As he prepared to sign the document that would cement humanity's place in the galactic community, he paused, looking around at the assembled aliens. 150 years ago, the galaxy taught humanity a painful lesson about power and fear, he said. We learned it well, perhaps too well. But today, we choose a different path. Earth will maintain its fleet, not as a sword hanging over the galaxy, but as a shield for those who cannot defend themselves. He looked directly at the Nexere Concordat leader. We remember what was done to us. We always will. But we choose to build a future based not on vengeance, but on the principle that true security comes only through cooperation and mutual respect. Marcus signed the treaty, and one by one, the alien representatives did the same. That night, aboard the Prometheus, Commander Ilara Shaw returned to the observation deck. The view was different now. Instead of the endless void of space, the viewport showed the glittering lights of Nexus Station, where ships from dozens of species moved about their business, no longer fleeing at the sight of human vessels. Admiral Helena Kreos joined her, looking out at the scene. "Do you think it will last?" Ilara asked quietly. Helena considered the question. Fear brought us to this moment, but it can't sustain peace. What happens next depends on whether we can transform that fear into something more constructive. And if we can't, Helena gestured to the stars beyond the station, then we have 900,000 reasons why they should reconsider. Ilara smiled slightly. I prefer the constructive approach. As do I, Helena agreed. But I've learned that peace works best when backed by strength. Together, they watched as human and alien ships moved through space in the beginnings of a new galactic order, one in which humanity would never again be underestimated or threatened with extinction. Across the fleet, a new message was transmitted to every vessel. Remember, but be better. For the children of Earth, it was both a reminder of their past and a commitment to their future. A future where humanity's place among the stars was secured not just by the power of their weapons, but by the wisdom to know when not to use them. 900,000 warships had taken flight, and the galaxy had chosen silence over war. Now, in that silence, something new had room to grow.